In the small African village of Tonto lived a man called Sampson. Sampson was not a handsome man. He was short, with a rough face and an awkward walk. People often laughed at him and called him ugly. He always wore his old red top and black trousers, clothes that made him stand out on the roadside. But even with his looks, Sampson had one thing many men in the village did not have. He had courage, and he had a dream. One day, Sampson saw a beautiful young woman at the market. Her name was Suzzy. Suzzy was not only beautiful, she was full of life. Her skin glowed in the sun, her brown straight dress showed her perfect shape, and her smile warmed the hearts of those around her. Men in the market whispered to each other when she passed, but Suzzy walked with grace and respect. Sampson fell in love with her the very first day. People laughed. "How can this ugly trotro driver win the heart of such a beautiful lady?" they asked. But Sampson did not give up. He followed Suzzy's family, helped them carry water, and showed respect to her parents. Over time, Suzzy saw something in Sampson. He was kind, hard-working, and he loved her sincerely. After some months, the families gathered. It was a big day in Tonto. Drums were played, women danced in colourful African cloth, and elders poured libation to bless the marriage. Sampson married Suzzy. The people of Tonto talked for many days. Some said Suzzy was too beautiful for Sampson, but others said love has no eyes. After marriage, life was not easy. Sampson owned a small trotro car that carried passengers from village to town. Every morning, he started the engine, and beside him, Suzzy worked as the mate. She stood in her brown dress, calling passengers with her sweet voice, "Accra! Accra! Circle, circle, come inside." People admired Suzzy every day. Some passengers whispered, "This mate is too beautiful for this work." Others laughed and said, "Her husband is lucky." But Sampson was proud. He loved driving his trotro with his wife as his partner. They worked together, shared jokes, and counted coins at the end of the day. One afternoon, the trotro stopped at the roadside in Tonto. Passengers climbed in, men in shirts, women in kaba and slit, children in school uniforms. Among them was a tall, neat man named John. John wore a white top and black trousers. He had a calm face and a gentle smile. When John entered the trotro, his eyes fell on Suzzy. Suzzy collected the fares with her usual charm. When she reached John, he smiled and handed her money. But when Suzzy tried to give him back his change, John shook his head softly and said, "Keep it." Suzzy looked at him with surprise. She had seen many men admire her, but John's eyes were different. He admired her beauty, yes, but there was something more in his look, something deeper. Suzzy felt shy and turned her face away. Sampson, focused on the road, did not notice. The other passengers looked at Suzzy and John. Some laughed quietly, others kept silent. In the trotro that day, something new began, a story that would change Sampson, Suzzy and John forever. But this was only the beginning. The sun rose over the village of Tonto. A new day began after the long hours of trotro work yesterday. Inside a small mud house, Sampson, the trotro driver, and his wife Suzzy woke up slowly. Sampson, still looking tired from driving, stretched his arms and wore his old red top and black trousers again. Suzzy, in her brown straight dress that showed her beautiful shape, smiled as she folded her cloth. She had always been a strong woman, ready to stand beside her husband no matter the struggles of life. But today was different. After preparing a little breakfast, Suzzy carried her basket and walked out. She was going to the market to buy foodstuffs for the day. The market of Tonto was busy and full of life, with sellers shouting, children running, and women bargaining for fish, tomatoes, and vegetables. As Suzzy walked gracefully among the crowd, heads turned. Men admired her beauty, women whispered about her shape, and children followed her steps with smiles. Suddenly, a familiar voice called her name. She turned and saw her mother, Stella. Stella, an older woman in a blue wrapper, was also buying food in the market. Mother and daughter hugged warmly, their smiles lighting the busy road. Together they walked, laughing and talking, enjoying the fresh morning. But just ahead, another story was about to unfold. John, the handsome man in a clean white shirt and black trousers, was also in the market. He was buying fruits and vegetables, and as fate would have it, he met Suzzy and her mother Stella face to face. John's eyes lit up when he saw Suzzy. He smiled kindly, and Suzzy could not hide her joy. They shook hands warmly and began to talk in a soft and lovely manner. The market noise faded for a moment as their laughter and gentle words filled the space. Before leaving, John quietly gave Suzzy a small paper with his number, asking her to call later. Suzzy held it in her hand, unsure of what to feel. Her mother Stella noticed everything. As they continued walking, Stella turned to her daughter and asked, "Suzzy, who is this man? Do you know him?" Suzzy explained that he was a passenger from the Trotro yesterday. Stella's face grew serious. She told Suzzy that John came from a good family and that he was a fine man. Then, in a shocking whisper, Stella said the unthinkable. "My daughter, you should not waste your life with Sampson. He is not your match. Divorce him and marry John. He is the man for you." Suzzy stopped walking. Her eyes widened, her lips trembled. She looked at her mother with disbelief. Her heart raced as her mother's words echoed in her mind. The busy market became silent in her ears. Shock and confusion filled her face. For the first time, Suzzy was caught between love, loyalty, and temptation. What will be the decision of Suzzy? Follow for the next part. It was Monday morning in Tonto village. Suzzy returned home from the market, her heart heavy and her mind filled with confusion. Her mother's words still echoed in her ears. Divorce Sampson, marry John. Suzzy walked slowly into their small mud house, set down her basket, and sat quietly. She did not touch her food. She did not laugh. The whole day she was lost in her thoughts. When night came, the house was silent except for the chirping of crickets outside. Suzzy lay beside her husband Sampson, but she could not sleep. Her eyes were open, her mind racing. Sampson turned to her and asked gently, "Suzzy, what is wrong?" She forced a smile and said, "Nothing, I am fine." She did not tell him the truth. The next morning, Tuesday, her mother Stella visited her husband Ben. Stella told Ben everything about John, the rich, handsome man who admired Suzzy. She spoke with passion, convincing her husband, "Ben, John is a man with money. He can take Suzzy away from this suffering life of Trotro work. With John, she will never lack food, never lack clothes. She will live in a fine house and be respected. Why should my daughter waste her beauty with poor Sampson?" Ben listened carefully, nodding his head. Finally, he said, "You are right, Stella. Even if Suzzy cannot divorce Sampson now, we should let her secretly go to John's house. With time, this affair will turn into marriage. It will be better for her future." Stella smiled and agreed. "Good decision, brother. Tonight, let us call Suzzy and speak to her." That evening, Suzzy sat before her mother and uncle as they spoke strongly to her. They told her about John's wealth, his good name, and the better life he could give. Suzzy was afraid, unwilling, and full of doubt. But they pressed on until she finally agreed to secretly move with John. By Thursday, Suzzy took John's number from her cloth, dialed it, and spoke to him. In a soft voice, she accepted his proposal. But she hid the truth. She did not tell John she was already married. On the phone, John smiled and told her one condition. "Suzzy, you are too beautiful to work as a Trotro mate. I don't want people in the street looking at you. Leave that work for me." Days passed and still Suzzy continued to sit by Sampson in the Trotro, hiding her new secret. She smiled outside, but inside her heart carried guilt. One evening, in their small bedroom, Suzzy sat with Sampson. She looked into his face and said slowly, "Sampson, I don't want to work on the Trotro anymore. I am too beautiful for that work." Sampson froze. His eyes widened, his mouth dropped. Shock and pain spread across his face. The woman he loved, the wife who once stood proudly by his side, was now slipping away. The story of Suzzy the Beautiful Trotro Mate was moving into dangerous waters. 3 months passed in the village of Tonto. Suzzy's secret life deepened. While her husband Sampson still believed she was the faithful wife by his side, Suzzy continued sneaking away to John's house. Behind closed doors, their affair grew stronger, bound by whispers, stolen moments, and nights of passion that Sampson would never suspect. At home, tension brewed. Sampson often asked why Suzzy refused to return to her Trotro Mate work. Each time, Suzzy gave excuses, exchanging sharp words with him, saying she was too beautiful for that work. Sampson, frustrated, could not understand her change of heart. One Tuesday evening, as the couple shared a simple meal in their kitchen, something unexpected happened. Suzzy, without warning, dropped her spoon, rushed from the table and bent over to vomit. The sound echoed through the room, clear signs of pregnancy. Sampson quickly rushed to her side, worry written on his face. "Suzzy, are you pregnant?" he asked with trembling hands. And with hesitation, Suzzy nodded and whispered, "Yes." Sampson's face lit up instantly with joy. That night, he could not hide his excitement. He believed he was about to become a father, celebrating quietly while Suzzy's heart carried a heavy secret. Only she knew who the real father was. The next morning, Suzzy visited her parents to break the news. Her mother Stella's face glowed with happiness. But in her mind, she believed John was the one who had planted the seed. Without delay, Stella hurried to John's home. She told him proudly, "John, Suzzy is pregnant. You must be happy. She will give birth to your child." John's heart swelled with pride. He thought he had finally secured Suzzy completely. For him, this was proof that their affair would lead to marriage. Yet, later that night, he called Suzzy. His tone carried both joy and doubt. He was happy, yes, but he questioned why her mother had rushed to him before Suzzy herself could confirm it. Still, John told Suzzy to go to the hospital and confirm officially. The next day, Suzzy obeyed. She told her husband Sampson that she needed a hospital visit. She was permitted to go, but inside Suzzy's chest beat a storm of fear. At the hospital, a kind nurse received her. Routine questions were asked until one shook her deeply. "Madam, what is your husband's name for the records?" Suzzy froze. Her face shifted from calm to fearful. Her hands trembled. The paper before her demanded and the name of the husband. Was it Sampson, her husband at home, or John, the man who had stolen her heart? Suzzy sat there, drowning in silence, torn between love, guilt, and truth. Knowing that whichever name she gave, the record would follow her home and has to be delivered to the husband responsible for verification. Would Suzzy mention John or Sampson? Interesting times ahead. Follow for part 5. At the hospital, Suzzy trembled with fear. Her hands shook as the nurse held the pen and paper before her. The moment of truth had arrived. With her heart racing and tears filling her eyes, she whispered the name, Sampson, her husband at home, the man who believed he was the father. As she walked back from the hospital, holding her small, beautiful bag, her steps were heavy. Fear clouded her face. She knew what naming Sampson meant. It was a decision that would haunt her. It meant leaving John in the dark. Immediately, Suzzy pulled out her phone and called her mother, Stella. Her voice shook as she explained what had happened, confessing she had given Sampson's name at the hospital. On the other side of the call, Stella froze. Confusion and fear struck her. If John discovered Suzzy had a husband, everything would collapse. Quickly, Stella gave a desperate plan. "Suzzy," she said, "you must go to another hospital. Do another test. This time give John's name. That way we will have 2 records, one for Sampson and one for John. Each will believe he is the father." Though shaken, Suzzy obeyed. She packed her small bag again and hurried to another hospital in the village. There, she sat in a small room with another nurse. When asked the name of her husband, she forced a smile and said softly, "John." With that, the second record was made. Suzzy walked back slowly, the weight of her secret growing heavier than ever. She went straight to her parents' home. Stella welcomed her, but Ben, her father, sensed something was wrong. When he asked why there were 2 tests, Stella quickly explained, "I told her to do 2. One with Sampson's name, one with John's. That way, both men will have their record. Both will believe they are responsible." Ben's face twisted with shock. His hands trembled. His breathing grew heavy as the truth sank in. The thought of 2 men believing they fathered one child overwhelmed him. Before Stella or Suzzy could calm him, Ben collapsed suddenly to the floor. Now the trouble deepens. Ben was admitted to the hospital after collapsing. Ben lay weak on the hospital bed, his voice trembling as he turned to Suzzy. With pained eyes, he begged her to stop living a double life. "Leave John, my daughter, and move on with your official husband, Sampson. Keeping secrets will destroy this family forever." But before his words could sink deep, Stella quickly pulled Suzzy aside to the hospital compound. With a cold determination, she whispered, "Don't listen to your father. Keep holding on to John. I will make sure he marries you. Sampson does not deserve you the way John does." Time passed. 7 long months into Suzzy's pregnancy, her stomach grew large, yet her lies grew larger. John, who had been pouring his wealth into her, started pressing harder. "Suzzy, come and stay with me." But every time, Suzzy refused. Suspicion filled John's heart. He decided to follow her, and one day, his worst fears came true. He saw Suzzy with Sampson, the very trotro driver he had once boarded. Rage boiled within him. He realized Suzzy had been playing him all along. The next day, John summoned Suzzy to his house. His face was dark, his voice sharp. "Who is Sampson to you? You deceived me. I've given you my money, my time, my love. Now you must leave Sampson and come to me. If you don't, I will expose every secret to the world." Suzzy became shocked and wondered how and when John go to know this secret. She broke down in tears, caught in a storm she had created. Her hands trembled, her voice cracked. She was torn between John's threats and Sampson's love. At home, Sampson noticed her sadness, but remained tender and excited about fatherhood. He could not see the storm behind Suzzy's smile. Meanwhile, Stella's boldness started to shake. She saw the lies spinning out of control and begged Suzzy again. "Confess and leave Sampson. Choose John or everything will collapse." But Suzzy's heart could no longer bear the weight. She wept silently, overwhelmed, terrified that the truth would explode at any moment. The world she built with lies was crumbling, and she knew the end was near. What will be the bold decision of Suzzy? Will Suzzy, out of fear, choose John or go boldly for her official husband, Sampson? Suzzy is now trapped with lies and love. Suzzy is now trapped with John's threats on one side, Stella's pressure on the other, and Sampson's innocent love in the middle. Her lies have chained her, and with every passing day, the truth grows heavier. One wrong step, big trouble. Watch out for the final part. The story reached its breaking point. Suzzy sat in her small room, crying bitterly, her hands pressed against her face, confused and broken. She didn't know what to do or which man to choose. Her tears fell like rain as the weight of her double life crushed her. Stella, her mother, kept pushing her. "Suzzy, don't waste your life with Sampson. John is rich. John is the man you deserve. Leave Sampson behind." But her father, Ben, was different. He gathered Suzzy and Stella in the compound one morning. His voice was weak but firm. "This path you are walking will bring shame and destroy our family. Stop chasing John. Suzzy, stay with your husband. Do not disgrace us." Yet Stella refused to listen. Later, she whispered to Suzzy, "Don't mind your father. He doesn't wish you well. John is your future. Forget Sampson." Then one day, Stella and Suzzy confronted Sampson directly on the roadside. Suzzy's eyes were cold as Stella declared, "This pregnancy is not for you, Sampson. Leave Suzzy alone and find another woman to marry." The words struck Sampson like thunder. He fell to his knees, tears pouring down his cheeks, begging Suzzy, "Please, don't leave me. Don't do this." But Suzzy turned away, unmoved. With Stella's help, Suzzy packed her things. Together, they went to John's house. From that day, Suzzy lived with John, while Sampson remained alone, heartbroken and rejected. Time passed. In the 9th month of pregnancy, Suzzy went into labour. Her screams filled John's house before he rushed her to the hospital in a taxi. Hours of pain, sweat and tears later, Suzzy gave birth to a baby boy. John stood proudly at her side as she lay on the hospital bed, holding the newborn tightly in her arms. Days later, Suzzy was discharged, and she and John returned home with the baby. For a while, life seemed peaceful. But after 1 month, John began to think. He sat quietly in the living room, doubts flooding his mind. "Is this child really mine?" he wondered. Finally, John made a decision. He told Suzzy he wanted a DNA test. Suzzy panicked, begging him not to do it. She tried everything to stop him, but John refused to listen. Out of anger, John picked up the phone and called hospital workers to come to his house for the test. Suzzy wept, helpless, as the nurses arrived and took the sample. A few days later, the result came. John's hands trembled as he opened the paper. His heart sank. The DNA confirmed the child was not his. The baby belonged to Sampson. John's face turned dark with rage. The truth destroyed him. That night, he sat Suzzy down and said coldly, "Because this child is not mine, I cannot continue this marriage. I will divorce you." Suzzy's heart shattered. Shocked and terrified, she fell on her knees, begging. Stella joined her, pleading with John. But John stood firm, his eyes burning with betrayal. "Leave my house," he shouted. In the end, Suzzy and her mother Stella packed their belongings in silence. Carrying their things, they walked out of John's compound, faces wet with tears, broken and defeated. And so Suzzy, once admired as the beautiful mate of Tonto village, lost everything. Her beauty, her choices, and her secrets led her to a bitter end.